so afraid. They're going to be praying for the downfall of glue sticks, and you're going to see it in one of Kelly Ann's videos. One of them is going to be like, when I was a witch, I was using glue sticks. Glue sticks.
Welcome to Auntie Kay's Tarot, your favorite radical queer indigenous auntie, bringing you tarot every day.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Auntie Kay's Tarot. So we're having a wee little chat today, probably going to be a long chat, about what you can do on a spiritual plane in the fight against rising authoritarianism and white supremacy. We are seeing settler colonial genocide again. We are seeing the U.S. attacking Iran. So white supremacy again. And at home, brand new legislative attacks at provincial and federal levels against Indigenous people, and in both Canada and the U.S., but way more obvious in the U.S. and at full steam, anti-immigration laws. They got quietly pushed through in Canada. They aren't doing anything Trump style, but they just made it really easy to do that now. Okay. So all these things are going on, and diversity of tactics from, hard radical events to acts of vandalism to peaceful protests to teach-ins to mutual aid to babysitting so someone else can go to a protest to the court work to support people who get arrested at occupations of protests and radical actions and immigration. So there's all kinds of diversity of tactics, and there's a spiritual tactic we can take in that. And we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about why it's important. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of that and not hold back on some of the hard shit I had to say about how that needs to be directed in those attacks against colonialism in this world. And if you're watching this video for the witchy tarot content, and you look at all this other stuff and think maybe I'm safe, is your practice safe? So let's talk about it. So this week on Turtle Island, the majority of Turtle Island, the parts occupied by the United States and Canada, will be celebrating settler colonialism and genocide on stolen lands. They will call it Canada Day and Independence Day, and by the time you're seeing this, Canada Day probably happened. If you are concerned about Palestine, you need to understand that the normalization of settler colonialism begins and ends with North America. And it allows it to carry across the globe, right? Continuously, unending. A shining beacon of light, the great American capitalist empire, and the really nice, polite Canadians proving settler colonialism is wholesome. And that has allowed the genocide that we see occurring in Palestine. Because settler colonialism does not ever occur without genocide. They're inseparable. And so it's important to understand that But if you participate in nationalist events on stolen land this week, you're participating in, first of all, a racist ritual, but a ritual. A ritual that's rooted in, an Anglo-Christian culture. Both national anthems speak about God. And both countries have nationalist rituals that you only see in settler colonies and really authoritarian places, right? Nationalist days, they're really a settler colonial invention. Other people are like, oh yeah, that's kind of a good idea. We'll remake ourselves and do that too. Modern authoritarians look at settler colonial celebrations and we're like, I like that. Why? Because settler colonialism is a really well disguised authoritarianism. And it's not hard to shift it over fully into authoritarianism. There's a few ways you can do it. The United States is doing it in a really brutal way. And while they're doing that, Canada is being ever the Canadian and finally doing it through a bunch of bills that undermine privacy, immigration, security protections, and of course, Indigenous rights in the environment. Because settler colonialism is still bad. It's still evil. The settler colonial empires are the empires George Lucas wrote about. If you don't, and it represents the United States of America, which is a settler colony. You don't need the whole history lesson. What you need to know is you're participating in a ritual that has an impact on this world on its spiritual level. And one that normalizes settler colonialism, which in turn allows for it elsewhere, and it allows for the genocide of Palestine. What are some things you can do about it? Hexes, curses. We all talk about hex patriarchy, hex white supremacy. Well, included in that, hex colonialism. Well, under the umbrella of colonialism, you're going to have patriarchy, you're going to have white supremacy, you're going to have capitalism, and Christianity. You cannot separate Christianity from colonialism. It is an aspect of it. It's always been an aspect of it. It is even an aspect of it over in Palestine with the invention of so-called Israel. That is a Zionist, a Christian Zionist idea. Right? You cannot separate Christianity from settler colonialism. You just can't. The recolonized people know this. So you need to set up your hexes covering all four. Think of the four corners, the four pillars of colonialism. Together, they all come together to create colonialism. And so you want to set up your hex to go against all of those. Look up good hexes if you don't have one already. If you do have your good ones already, modify them slightly for those things. Herb-wise, keep it to the basics. really keep it to the basics. You want a good oil, and go with parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Like, those are herbs. Use the tools of the empire against them. So those are herbs that Europeans have used for a long time in these ways. And so you want to use the tools of the empire against them. So parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. And you'll want something to represent each of those. We're going to talk, I hope, in this video about why I'm being vague and not giving you all the full directions. I want you to either create or find, if you don't already, or use your own, rather than posting it all over the internet. Rather than posting my work all over the internet to be very specifically targeted and dismantled. I don't want it targeted and dismantled. I want it to stay up and nice and strong. But I am going to give some hints. One that I like to use on Christianity, because they do a lot of negative talk against so many groups, against so many of us. And they're often the backbone of who is being targeted and oppressed by authoritarianism, especially the ones settler colonialism is meddling in. You know, Christians are behind the anti-immigration sentiment. They're behind the abortion issues. They're behind, the attacks on queer and trans rights, which Indigenous land is trans land. It's queer land. It's gay land. It's lesbian land. It's bi land. It's intersex land. It's asexual land. And this was part of our culture. And erasing third genders and transgender folks is part of the erasure of Indigenous culture and beliefs on these lands. So that's also part of fighting colonialism. And so I like to use the classic I am rubber, you are glue. Everything negative you say bounces off us and sticks on you. And if there is a local church, especially if it's a Zionist one, near you, you can go out and do that there. And you can take a glue stick and draw a nice pentagram on the door of the church, if you do it at night, or on the sidewalk, or right in front of their door where everyone walks to go in. You can do all their doors. And it's hard for them to see the glue stick because of the way they dry. And it's a really good representation for, I'm rubber, you are glue, right? And if you wish to add a candle to it, if you have enough cover and you're late enough at night or something, but, spell candles often last like way too long. Birthday candles, they are fabulous. They burn pretty quickly. So there's that as well. Or you can also put your birthday candle in with a protective cup so the wind doesn't blow it out, and just walk around the perimeter of the property, saying your words. Those of you who are uncomfortable with what I'm saying about Christianity, you cannot separate Christianity from colonialism. And when you say, not all Christians, you sound like the type of men who are like, not all men. And the type of white people who are like, not all white people. We all know that the type of men who aren't included in hexing the patriarchy curses are the ones who are doing it with us, or supporting it, or going out and getting us the candles to hex the patriarchy. They're not included in it. if you happen to have a loser boyfriend or husband who's sitting next to you being like, what about me? Not on men. Then yeah, he's probably included. Likewise, it's a pretty easy jump that if it's only the problematic men and the problematic white people saying, not all, don't include me in that, and needing that special clarification just for them, then the same goes for those who ask us to qualify, no Christians. Colonized people don't owe anyone that. We don't owe the protection of Christian feelings to anybody. We don't. You know what? Queer and trans people don't owe Christians that either. They don't. I don't give a shit if some of you are not racist or some of you are not transphobic or homophobic. Don't care. The reason so many are is because it is part of your religious faith. It's written in the religious faith, so there's a lot of problematic shit written in that Bible if you read it. And so don't come at us and say not all Christians when there are Christians out there spouting the hateful tenets of your faith. If you're the special one who doesn't believe all aspects of your own religion because they're problematic, glad you don't. But they are documented aspects of your faith that have caused way too many people not just harm, but their lives. Right? It's not being quantified or qualified. Yes. We need to include them in our workings because too many of them are praying on minimum on Sunday, in large masses together to harm many of us. Not all of them, but a lot of them. A lot of them. And they are largely responsible for most of the rituals we practice in North America, including nationalist rituals and nationalist songs and that has a spiritual impact that we need to counter. Yeah. That wasn't everything I wanted to get at. We're going to have a quick part 2, okay? Okay. The part 2 aspect of this is because I believe I've spoken before about spiritually standing up against oppressive spirituality. But my need to speak up against it wasn't just sparked by nationalist actions at this time. It just added to the conversation and gave a point to one aspect to why it is important. But now I want to cover an aspect where I ask all of you to step into a theoretical future use shoes. So in part 1, which maybe I should switch around and make part 2, we step into other people's shoes. Unless you're colonized people, then you're just stepping into your own shoes. But in In this part, we're going to step into our theological future shoes. For some of us. For some, you're still stepping into someone else's shoes. Okay? But, so, for those of us who practice non-Christian beliefs, those of us who practice witchcraft, if you're watching this, those of us who practice witchcraft, imagine 5 years from now, and where things have currently been heading, in whichever Western country you're living in. Because if you're watching me in English, you're probably sitting in a Western country of one form or another, right? Are you going to be able to practice that witchcraft in 5 years and post it on YouTube? Are you going to be able to do that? Maybe even less than 5 years. 5 years this is not a prediction. This is my political thoughts. Okay, your brain thinking. So 5 years is just a number. It could be less. Will you be able to practice witchcraft in 5 years and post it on YouTube? At this stage, some people can't do that because of their family or their church. But what if it's the state that's not going to let you do that? Or your ability to get a job in an increasingly Christian, nationalist country, right? What if? And I was thinking about this the other day because I'm 50, right? I am the first generation of my people to be allowed to freely practice Indigenous spirituality in Canada and the USA. Friends who are only 10 and 15 years older than me remember practices being in secret or something they weren't allowed to do in their family because you could get in trouble, you could go to jail. Oh, you know your crazy uncle. That's what he got in trouble for. So it's not far-fetched for me to say, hey, you know we're not going to go back just 50 or 60 years and take back those freedoms as well. Do you know what other freedoms were not allowed for Indigenous people at that time? Right? Like, so 1960, Indigenous people in Canada get the right to be represented by a lawyer in court, to go to court. You weren't allowed to represent Indigenous people as a lawyer previously. We had citizenship forced upon us in 1960. We didn't want it. We have our own nations and citizenships, and we had seen how citizenship being forced on Indigenous folks in the United States had led to like mass assimilation. Like even by 1960, huge amounts of Indigenous people in the United States identified as Americans. And Indigenous folks in Canada in 1960 were very concerned that our people would one day view themselves as Canadians if citizenship was forced upon us. Our elders managed to rise up and stop almost all of the white paper, except for the part about citizenship. And unfortunately, they were correct. Many of us now call ourselves by the name of our colonizers. Many Indigenous people call themselves Canadians or Americans, which is assimilation. It's not okay or normal, right? Like, no one would expect Palestinians to identify as their colonizers, right? At least not right now. So, it's not hard to imagine these things being taken away. And if you think, who would take away my ability to practice witchcraft in the country that I live in? It's the right? It's the fundamentalists, it's the Christians. Maybe not all of them, but a significantly large number of them are lobbying, voting, and praying against things you value, freedoms you value having. And those things are in jeopardy, especially if they succeed in stripping away rights from people who might be more marginalized than you. Right? Once they succeed at that, it won't be hard to come after other things that are important to them. And thanks to one of my clients, enforcing Christianity is something that some aspects of the religious right want to do in the United States. The Heritage Foundation included. They want to be able to enforce Christianity, make it a Christian nation. Well, what will happen to our jobs for those of us who work like me on the psychic hotlines, right? Like, what will happen to our spiritualities? What will happen to our friends and families? If that is what helps you say, all right, this is a fight on a spiritual plane, and whatever other things you are doing to fight against the rising authoritarianism and fascism in this world, if you are somebody who practices spirituality, please consider taking on this fight on a spiritual level, because it could impact you, right? Your spirituality can also be under attack. And there'll be no one left to protect you. So, let's get on this train right now from the beginning and get down and creative and work together your, 4-part hex or curse against colonialism. And include all of those aspects of settler colonialism. If you need to learn a bit more about settler colonialism so you can beef up your spell work, do that. You can use puppet, you can use candle magic. There's various different ways that you can go about this, whichever is your preferred form of hexing and cursing. You can also look up something on the internet, and you can always adjust words to bring them into focus for what you want. You absolutely can find hexapatriarchy, hex white supremacy spells on the internet and just tweak them for capitalism and Christianity, so we can get that full all four posts of foundation posts of that colonialism. All right. I think I got this all this time. I tried to get this out in a clean, not messy way. And I hope I did it. Fish updates. Shinhati, the salty black black platyfish with the yellow. I couldn't find her all day. And then I started questioning if I'd seen her the day before. But I knew I hadn't seen her all day. And I was in between calls and was pretty busy, and plus there's some other things I was doing. I'm panicking, I'm searching, I'm looking, I'm like, they hide, she can't possibly hide that well in here. You know, picking up ornaments, also afraid of picking something up and putting it down and squishing babies or trapping babies. And eventually I'm like, I looked behind the aquarium and didn't see her behind the filter, but I pulled the filter forward to look behind it and I saw her. And I pulled it more and she swam out. And she looks a little rough, especially around the tail fin. But very happy to be free. And I put some salt in the aquarium. And, oh man, I was so worried. Also, on the stress fish level meter, there are these super adorable, but very teeny tiny, brand new. I've seen them for 3 days now. Clear or see-through platyfish. And, because they're clear, you can only see them from certain perspectives. You can see like their black eyes and like the little like tiny body part, and then they're clear. I have seen one 5-week-old platyfry chasing these down. I've seen a fish or two chase one down and then give up. I think they look like the frozen baby brine shrimp that I feed the fish. And I think they're chasing them. I found one that was like bitten in half and dead. It was not easy to find. I'm surprised I found it. They're really hard to see. So, I don't know. Maybe I hold off on feeding anyone baby brine shrimp till these see-through platyfish are like a week-old size. I don't know. So that's where things are at today. And I'm tired, and it is time to let you all go. I can just picture some crazy Christian all up in a panic about witches seeing this video out in front of their church trying to find some glue stick residue in the shape of a pentagram, losing their cool. And for that alone, I hope this spell catches fire. Get your glue sticks out. They're going to be so afraid. They're going to be praying for the downfall of glue sticks, and you're going to see it in one of Kelly Ann's videos. One of them is going to be like, when I was a witch, I was using glue sticks. Glue sticks.